Hello everybody and welcome back to Juno New Origins, where we are currently working on some of these contracts. So we have a contract to go sideways here, launch a new craft, start grounded, crash at least 500 kilometers away from the village. That should be easy enough. Let's accept that, and we can just launch this vehicle that we used previously. We can put this on the village pad. And right, we need to get rid of our payload. So we're going to hop in here and get rid of our payload. So we need to detach our nose cone, get rid of the CubeSat, and we're going to just put the nose cone right back on. And now we launch this from the village pad. So we want to not quite get into orbit. We want to crash this thing 500 kilometers away. So I'm going to set ourselves to a pitch of about 60 degrees. And we're going to immediately launch this. We want to get a fair amount of horizontal velocity. And what else do we need here? Yeah, we just need to be at 500 kilometers away. Okay, so let's pitch this on over, and we're going to get as much distance as we can. I'd like to actually bring this over to like 30 degrees. I think we might have some heating issues, but we'll see how that ends up going. Yeah, I would actually like this to be over at like 4, maybe 5 degrees. We'll see if we can get pitched over to that. Of course, we've just got this tiny little reaction wheel in here, and I don't think that these solid rocket motors actually gimbal, but it's fine. We're going to be running out of SRBs shortly. Now, one thing we might have to do is flip this around and start burning retrograde, which is going to be interesting for sure. Okay, so now I'm going to separate this. Right, we should throttle up. And this engine is not really super well optimized to be at this altitude, although the shock diamond got a lot better, so that's okay. Interstage is taking heat damage. Yeah, that's okay. We don't care about the interstage. So we're currently about 23 kilometers away from this. So we definitely need to push this out a little bit further. We're getting pretty much just horizontal speed here, and we're just looking to build up our speed high enough to be, well, 500 kilometers away from the village. So for now, I'm not too concerned about our overall speed. I just want to get some distance here. Cool. I'm not too concerned about our apoapsis either, as long as we have sufficient distance. We can see time to apoapsis is going down right now, although it's going down slightly slowly. Okay, we're over 10% of the distance away from the village that we need to be now. So that's looking good. We're only 5 seconds to apoapsis, though. I'm cranking up our pitch a bit here. Okay, we're at apoapsis at this moment. We have passed the apoapsis, but let's crank up our pitch a little bit more here. There we go. We can see we're pushing that apoapsis back out now. We're no longer going down, so that is good. We're not trying to achieve orbit here. We're just trying to get enough horizontal speed. So we're 1/5 of the distance that we need to go. That looks good. And the apoapsis here, we can see, is pushing up. That's fine. We'll just keep pushing that up for a little bit here until it's, I don't know, maybe like 60 kilometers. Or maybe just like 30 seconds to apoapsis, or something like that. We don't need to get too high up as long as we don't have significant heat damage. That's the main thing here. And the atmosphere is getting thinner at this moment, so that looks good. I'm going to lock us to prograde at this time. We're quite a long ways away from the apoapsis at this point, and I just want to keep building up our speed. So that looks good for now. 40 seconds from the apoapsis and holding. I think that's going to start going up again. Hasn't yet. But looking at what's happening to the apoapsis there, I definitely think that's going to start going up. Yep, there it goes. Beautiful. So we're currently traveling at about 2.5 kilometers per second. And I think we're just going to look to burn this out, or mostly burn it out. We don't need to achieve orbital velocity, but we're over half of the distance that we need to achieve at this point. And I'm going to cut our engine. I'm going to move us around to retrograde. There we go. And we're just going to park like this. Because we know we're over half the distance that we need to be, and we're going to want to slow this down, I think. We need to crash, right? So we need to survive down to the ground. So the idea here is we're just going to lock to retrograde, and we're going to do a bit of a powered, I was going to say re-entry. We haven't exited the atmosphere, but we're definitely in a thinner portion of the atmosphere. No doubt about that. We are at the apoapsis as of right about now. Okay, and we are beginning to drop in speed still. That's a good sign. We're dropping in speed as we drop to the periapsis. I imagine as we start going a little bit more vertical, that will change. But we can see at this point we are about 450 kilometers away from the village. I'm just going to let us continue to drift here until we hit the 500. If I were to start the burn now, we would likely still make it, but I want to make sure. So we're 480. That looks good. And we're still slowing down a little bit. 490 and 500. Commencing burn. So we're going to burn off the remainder of the fuel in this retrograde direction, slowing ourselves right on down. I keep trying to right-click to pan. I'm so used to KSP. But yeah, we're just going to slow this down, hopefully enough to survive the re-entry. And that looks decent. So we're going to burn this completely out, and then we're going to flip over to prograde, because I want the nose cone to be facing the prograde. That definitely decelerated us a lot. Excellent. That was really good. Okay, we are out of fuel. So now we're going to flip ourselves around to prograde. And at this point, we can see basically where we are headed. It's out over here, but we just need to descend. We can see we are increasing our speed at this point, which is deeply unsurprising. And that looks good for now. Okay, let's head on down. So we're going to warp forward as fast as we're allowed, which is 2x. And let's just bring this guy right on down. At this speed, we're definitely not going to have any heating issues. So that looks good. 500 kilometers away from the village is easy. I don't think that it's going to say that a splashdown doesn't count. I hope it doesn't say that. If it does, problems ensue, but I guess we'll see. So we are heading on down here. We're slowing down remarkably. We're down to 300 meters per second. It's kind of insane how slow this is going right now. 200 meters per second. And continuing to decelerate. Looks like we're going to be reaching terminal velocity for this fairly soon. But I think we might survive this dip into the water here. We're currently traveling at 125 meters per second. I want to be locked velocity prograde. There we go. Cool. 117 meters per second. Oh, this is actually land. I thought this was water for some reason. I mean, we want to be on land. I don't know why I thought that was water. That's very clearly land. Okay, sure. Absolutely fine. We're going to end this flight. We completed our mission, so that is wonderful. So next up, we've got 130 tech points, but we don't have anything we need to spend that on right now. Let's head into our career here, and this is Drew Orbit. Okay. So this is much less generous, but it's just circularize at 104 kilometers. That seems fine. We can definitely do that. We'll accept that. This rocket should do it. I don't think we need to have a CubeSat on this. We don't need, like, any payload. From what I can tell, anyway. So that looks fine. We'll just launch this, and we'll need to go up to orbit. So 104 kilometers, huh? Okay. We'll see if we've got the Delta V on this. I'm pretty sure we do have the Delta V to go to 104 kilometers. We've been pretty close to that, and we had a fair amount of leftover fuel. So let's just lift this guy off. I'm going to put it... I feel like 60 was decent. Let's just lift this off, and we'll pitch that over to 60 degrees and start getting some horizontal velocity. Excellent. So yeah, we just have 180 days to do this in, and we need to get to an apoapsis of 104 and a periapsis of 104. Not bad. Looks good. So we're just going to burn prograde here. Basically prograde. We're going to burn 60 degrees for now until we reach an apoapsis of a decent amount. I'm going to want to lower this somewhat, most likely. But let's continue to burn here for now. Apoapsis, we can see, is going to be reaching like mid-50s, if I remember correctly, by the time this fully ramps down. And that'll be absolutely great. I should remember to throttle up for once. I usually don't. Okay. There we go. And we've got those shock diamonds. Not great, but they will go away pretty quickly. So at this point, I want to take us over to a pitch of about 20 degrees or so. And yeah, we can see the shock diamonds are now gone. Excellent. And we're just going to be continuing to burn here. We need to hit an apoapsis of 104 kilometers, plus or minus 3.25. So, I mean, 3.25 kilometers is still pretty generous, to be honest. So let's raise up our apoapsis on up here, just continuing to burn at this altitude, or rather at this pitch. We are getting primarily horizontal velocity at this point, but we are still getting some amount of vertical velocity, and we're going to need it. We can see that our time to apoapsis is currently going down, so I don't want to pitch down further at this moment. So we're reaching 66 kilometer apoapsis right now. That looks good. We're still primarily working on getting horizontal speed at this moment. We're not trying to push that apoapsis up too high just yet, because we need a lot of momentum for our periapsis. So for now, this is looking good. 39 seconds to apoapsis. I expect that to start turning around, though, based on the fact that the speed of the apoapsis's climb is increasing. So the time to apoapsis should start going up fairly soon, especially since our velocity is lower than our pitch at this point. So that looks good. We're just holding this attitude for now. We've got another 30 kilometers of apoapsis to climb. So that sounds absolutely fine. We're just going to target this right at that 104. But we have to remember that unlike KSP, there's some ramp up and ramp down time in the engines for this. So we're just going to have to go to like 103.5 or so and then just fine tune it, probably, is what's likely going to end up happening here. Cool. So we've got about another kilometer per second or so, a little over a kilometer per second, until we end up getting enough surface velocity to be orbital. That's fine. We definitely know that we need to raise this up a little bit. Okay, 89 kilometers in the apoapsis. That's looking good. 92. Yeah, we're definitely going up on that time to apoapsis, which is not surprising at all. Okay, 99, 100, 101, 102, 103, and shutting down. I shut it down deliberately at 103. We're going to pitch down, and I'm going to very slightly throttle up. And we're going to burn like this, very slightly. This is at 2% thrust, until hopefully that apoapsis goes up. Okay, this is 6% thrust. There we go. That's 104. Excellent. So now we need to lock velocity prograde, and we need to warp forward towards that apoapsis. So we've got 74 seconds there. We can go forward at like 10x, and that seems okay. Okay. We're still a little ways away. Let's warp a little further. There we go. About 10 seconds away. That looks good. So I'm going to commence a burn at T-minus 3 seconds, I think. Okay. This is a little too late. That's understood. I should have thought about that. That's my own fault. 100%. We're going to be a little bit in a weird orientation here. That's reasonably fine. I think the apoapsis is going to need to be tuned. Yes, it is. But the periapsis is... let's just bring the periapsis up to its target amount. 101, 10... Okay, yeah, this is way too much. So, as I said, we're going to be in a weird orientation here because I burned too late. So next what I want to do is I want to warp around to the periapsis, which is going to be in 1.6 minutes, and we're going to want to retrograde this because we have way too much in our apoapsis. So let's dial that back, and let's warp on over. Okay, down to 10x, and let's get this solid, and we're burning. Now the apoapsis is 101. This is weird to me because of the ramp up, ramp down, but that's okay. We can work with this. Okay, back to prograde. We've got plenty of fuel, and let's just be very cautious. So we're going to take this up to 104 is the target. This is now going to switch to the apoapsis again. There we go. Now we're going to need to flip, or actually we're going to need to stay here. We're going to need to go to the apoapsis. So we'll just cruise on to the apoapsis because we need to raise the periapsis up a bit. So we need to do basically a full orbit here, and that is fine. So we're about 7 minutes away. Now we can continue going at 100x for a moment, I think. Now we're about 3 minutes away. 2 minutes. Okay, down to 10x. 20 seconds, 10. And we're going to start a very cautious burn in about, well, right about now. There we go. 104, 104, and holding it. Perfect. So we've completed the contract, and now we're going to end the flight. We're going to need to destroy the craft. It's kind of weird that things can't remain, but I guess that's okay. Means like stations would be really rough to build. You'd have to do it in like one go. Docking isn't really a thing, I guess. But sure. Or maybe there's a way to do it. There probably is. So this is reach 80 kilometers and go faster than 4 kilometers per second. Do we think we have the Delta V to do that in this vehicle? Probably. I'm going to say we probably do. I'm going to make a slight modification, though. I would like, I think, to have a little bit more in this stage down here. So in stage 1, we can see our thrust to weight is 2.5. I would like to detach this, I guess, raise this up a bit, and have just a little more in there. So that's 2.07. What if we did that? 2.03? Even that, at 1.74, would be reasonably fine. So this would definitely push us a lot further with not much more cost because this is all SRB. So that sounds great. Let's put this out on the pad. It has issues. It's too tall for the selected launch location. 12.5 meters is greater than 10 meters. That is true. So we're going to have to shave off a little bit of... So this is like 8.2, I think. We're going to have to shave off a little bit of length here. 11.5. So 1.5 more meters are going to have to come off. So that's going to be 1.3 from here. So we're going to need 5.7 as the absolute most that this can be. Has to go down by one more. It can't be equivalent, I guess. Okay, so that's the best that we can do. Sure. What does that put us at for our thrust to weight. 2.31. I mean, that's pretty good. And we'll have some extra burn there, I guess. So we stretched that a little bit, and that should pretty much guarantee this. So we just need an apoapsis of greater than 80 kilometers, right? Altitude of 80 kilometers or higher. I mean, we're going to have to be higher if we're going to go 4 kilometers. That's definitely going to be a thing. Okay, let's get this over to about 60 degrees and let's go. So we're going to have a little bit more burn time in our SRBs this time. That sounds good. And we're just going to propel ourselves on up. We're going to want primarily horizontal. So really, I'd like to bring our pitch over to about 20 degrees right now. And just continue punching up as much as we can here. We've still got another 30% fuel here, so we'll get a decent amount of apoapsis out of it. I'm hoping that this is still up over about 40, even with this pitch over. Looks like it will be. Yeah, we've still got 8% fuel here, so this is, even with the additional pitch over, that is still reaching about 50 kilometer apoapsis. I like it. That's very solid. So basically what we did there is we traded the extra fuel that we added for horizontal speed instead of vertical speed. And that sounds great. So we can see our apoapsis is going up here. Our time to apoapsis is decreasing. That seems okay. And we just need to get up to about an 80 kilometer apoapsis. So we just need to build up a fair amount of surface velocity here. Now, I would like to push this up a little bit higher. We see some shock diamonds at the beginning. We see that this is not at peak efficiency when we first launch this. We can do that with our ascent trajectory, but I think for now this is reasonably fine. So our apoapsis is not currently as high as I would like it to be. We'll keep an eye on that. We've got 45 seconds to the apoapsis here, and that's a lot of time for us to build up horizontal speed. So for the moment, I'm going to leave it be, and we're going to target an apoapsis of somewhere around 80 kilometers, which is, of course, orbital altitude in this game. That is where the atmosphere no longer exerts any drag on us. So that seems reasonably fine, but we're actually going to be getting a significantly higher value than that because we're going to need to get our velocity up over 4,000 kilometers per second, or kilometers per second, meters per second, 4,000 meters per second. So we can see our time to apoapsis is currently holding. That looks good. And our apoapsis is currently about 72 kilometers. So this looks fine. I'm not going to make any pitch alterations at this moment. This is now increasing, so arguably we should probably pitch over to about 0, but I'm going to hold it here until we're at, I think, 77 on the apoapsis, something like that. So that's 76 and 77. I'm now going to pitch us to 0 degrees. I want to be getting purely horizontal speed at this point. We do not require, in theory, additional altitude, although we're going to get some additional altitude. But we don't require, in theory, additional altitude. Okay, so we've gotten half a kilometer there. That should definitely get us to orbital altitude. And we just need to cross 4,000 meters per second, right? We'll see how that goes. So 79.2 kilometers on the apoapsis right now. It's looking reasonably fine. 79.5. And time to apoapsis is going up now. So we're absolutely fine in this heading. We just need to put as much velocity as we can into our horizontal speed and see if we can cross that 4,000 mark. It's going to be... I think this is doable. I think this is a thing. Our apoapsis is going way up, but that's to be expected. 3,700. 3,800. 3,904 kilometers per second. Beautiful. And we've got 9% fuel left. I love it. Also, this is quite an apoapsis, but we're going to end this flight, and that is great. Okay, so next up, of course, there's another CubeSat mission here. 2 CubeSats ready to put into orbit, and that's fine. So we need to do the 2 CubeSats into the same orbit. This is not going to be putting them into different orbits. Okay. So that's fine. We can accept this, and we're going to need 2 CubeSats. But it is time to put a cut in here. Before I do that, I do want to hop in here, and I want to put the CubeSats in, because I guarantee you I will forget that in the future. So we're going to need 2 CubeSats. I'm going to put one about here, and then we're going to mirror that. Part symmetry is not available for this position. Really? Okay. Well, I guess we're going to need to come in up here then. And I'm going to put a CubeSat like this, and then we're going to duplicate it. There's no attachment point up here. Okay, that's interesting. This is not actually attaching, I don't think. It's selected, I think. So what we need to do then is we just need to position it about here and about here. I want them to be fairly symmetrical, but it probably doesn't matter that much. So something about like that, and then we put our nose cone on, and it should be good. So let's save this, but we're not going to launch this. This is apparently new. Okay, sure. We're not going to launch this until next episode, because it is time to put a cut in here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and we'll get this guy up into orbit. This can definitely reach orbit. There's no question about that. And we'll get that completed nice and quick. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings. And a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including ALS Gamer, Atala, Ali Lee, Dark Horse, Xenocyte, Upper Cumberland Gamers, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, The Lounge STL, Kentogan, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video. And as always, I will see you all next time.